You don't need more rules. You don't need a roadmap. But what's happening underneath the food? This isn't a diet. This is a blueprint for emotional healing and food friction, which is how you have described your new book, my friend. Why you overeat and how to stop it for good. Talk to me, mate. How has this book been for you in terms of what's it taught you personally and how are you finding it now it's live?
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously, thanks for letting us come on and talk about my journey. You know what I can offer people in terms of helping them with their eating habits and about my new book. I've got it here, so I'll shamelessly plug it now, so I don't have to pick it up later. So this book, Harvey, is essentially 10 years worth of experience, both with coaching people with my job, but also overcoming my own disordered eating habits, which I know we talked a lot about in my previous episode in the podcast. So anyone listening now for the first time, go back, listen to season 1, because we talk about that a lot. So this book, like I said, it's 10 years worth of everything I've learned, all my tips, tricks, what works, what doesn't work, the mistakes that people make when they're approaching dieting or wanting to eat better, or even address something like an eating disorder or various different types of disordered eating. So yeah, this book, that's what it is. It's 10 years worth of insights and knowledge that I've picked up from personal experience and working with all the clients that I have.
Amazing. So, talk to me about the process of writing a book because that is no mean feat. And like in the grand scheme of things, there's not many actual authors in the world. So how did you find that process of actually writing the book? Because I know that we've had conversations about it for a while, but it's obviously only been this year where it's come to fruition.
Writing the book, Harvey, was actually the easy part. Getting it to print was the hardest part. So it took just as long to actually, let's say, my PDF document full of mistakes, not really ordered, just the raw version of everything I wanted to speak about. Getting an editor to help me make sense of that and put it into chapters and make the spelling mistakes correct and change some of the grammar, because I'm not an English literature A-star student. I think I'm a guy who's got great ideas, and I suppose many people would say maybe my writing is good. It's powerful, it's emotive, but it's certainly not polished in terms of being author standard. So there was a lot of editing, a lot of back and forth. I had to go where I did heavy edits myself, where I re-edited it once to what I thought I wanted it to sound like. Then the second round of editing was like making the grammar better, because my grammar's not perfect. And then the next hardest part was the getting it to fit like the margins for these printing places, print on demand places. And you upload a PDF. Oh, the cover's the wrong size. Right, back to the drawing board, redesign the cover. You've got the preview of what it's like to print. Half of the printing is over there, so it's going to be cut off by the folds of the book. I say, oh my God. So it took us about 3 to 4 months of pretty much knuckling down about 2 to 3 times a week for about 2 to 3 hours, or as long as I could, until I ran out of energy. But it was the editing, the formatting, the actual finding a place to print, and all the logistical stuff that was actually the hard part. Writing it, to answer your question, was actually fairly easy. It really was. I've kind of done books before. I've done audio books, so it was the same kind of principle. I went, right, what do I want to teach? And I kind of reverse engineered it. And I got I just made a massive list of basically every topic or every subject that I want to teach. And then I just started off, like, if I was to write a social media post about each of these subjects, I just started writing like that. And then I expanded the social media post to say, right, can I go really detailed on this and create like a 4 to 5 page, long style, maybe like a blog or something, And then when I had a collection of all these things, I was like, right, I've got the makings of a book here. I've got all the different topics. And then that's when I asked for advice about how should I format it. I'd done some research, and it said start off with like a story, set the scene, and then get like one of your main teaching points out like a third of the way through the book, and then kind of like explain some of the other strategies that complement that, and then some sort of big ending. So I kind of done a bit of research for how you structure a book, but I kind of had the makings of it fairly easily. I knew what I wanted to teach. I just had to, like I say, tweak it, format it, and then the story kind of unfolded from there. Once I got into it, I really enjoyed it. It was like a little creative project that I had going on that lasted a few months, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't feel I felt resistance starting it because I didn't have a plan, but when I actually reverse engineered what I wanted to do and faced the pain of sitting down in the local library for the first time, and I was like, right, I've got this in my head, but I don't know where to start. And I spent about, I'm not even kidding, 8 hours on my day off. I sat there and I didn't stop until I had the outline of a concept. you know? So it was the initial 8-hour starting block that I did that was so painful. And it took us weeks to commit to that. Every time I said, oh, I'll go today and get started, I never. That was the hardest part. But once I did that, it was actually fairly easy, because once I seen the plan in front of us, I was like, right, break it down. I'm going to do that topic this week, that topic next week. And then it just went from there. So I saw it as a series of mini projects that I just chipped away at. Then eventually I had the makings of the book.
Do you know what? That's not what I was expecting, if I was honest. Like, when I've spoken to people about the process of writing a book, and almost probably the preconception that I have was not of that at all. It probably been a lot more, I guess, negative in a way, like a lot of like resistance, knuckling down. But I think, and it's something that I really do admire about you, like the strategy's very clear.
Yeah. Well, that's why I procrastinated on getting started for so long, because I actually sat down at the end of 2022 and I said, right, I'm going to write a book in 2023. And didn't get around to it. I just got distracted and I'm busy all the time, all the major excuses. Right, same again, 12 months later, 2024, it's going to be the year. Didn't do it. So I had to kind of face myself at the start of this year. Man, I'm full of shit. I've wrote down, I'm going to write a book for 2 years in a row now. Now, maybe that worked out for me, because I've got to admit, I think if I wrote a book 2 years ago, I don't think it would be anywhere near as good as this. So I'm sort of glad in hindsight that I did procrastinate. But at the start of this year, I said, right, I'm going to do it. And then quarter 1 went by and I get to the start of the April and like a third of the way through the year, whatever it is. And I went, I still haven't done it. So that's when I had to face the music of why? And I asked that question, why am I resisting this? And I found there was a crossroad I was at, Harvey. Number one, if there's anything in your life where you tell yourself, I'm going to do it, and then you don't end up doing it, there's only one of possible two situations going on, right? And I realized this. One, you don't actually value the thing that you're saying you're going to do. You're essentially like the idea of that outcome happening, but the process, you don't actually want to do it. So you just stop kidding yourself and say, you know what, I should write a book, but really I'm not going to, because shoulds aren't good enough reasons to actually do it. It wasn't that. I deeply did want to do it, and I realized it was I didn't have a strategy, so I was overwhelmed. So through that process I established, I haven't done it because I don't have a strategy. It's not that I actually don't want to do it. There's been many things in my life contrary to that where I realized I was procrastinating on it, and then I realized actually I don't want to do it, and I just let it go. So sometimes in life you have to look at things that you're avoiding, and it's going to be one of those possible two scenarios. You either don't actually want to do it and you just think that you should do it for whatever reason, but really you don't want to, you don't feel like you can, or you don't see the value in it, or the process that it's going to take for you to do it. You're just like, nah, I don't have that in me at this moment in time. Like I say, there's been many times I've done that. I've abandoned projects before when I've realized actually I just don't want to do that. It's not, I don't have it in us right now. I don't value it. The payoff's not worth it. The payoff that I'll get for the process that I've got to endure, I just kind of get my head around it. So you've got to be humble enough to walk away. This wasn't that. It was that I was just overwhelmed. So I essentially took off, I would say 3 to 4 months in my business that I just served the clients I was already working with. And that stopped me from having to spend about 10, 12 hours a week trying to accumulate clients or acquire clients or find more opportunities and do more speaking gigs. And I just put a pause on everything and I kind of knuckled down. And that creative energy that I needed to write the book, I realized it was being spent on just working in the business, in it, just day to day. And I was like, no wonder I procrastinated. I kind of find the time to do it. So that creative spark that I had wasn't there. So once I created the space for that creative spark to come back, I was able to crack on with it.
Amazing. So let's talk about creating that space there. So what, for you, do you feel that was holding you back in regards to having that creative space? What did you do to almost ring fence an amount of time and amount of energy that you would usually be doing on something else to actually fulfilling the project? Does that make sense?
Yeah, very easy to answer. I didn't want to admit this, possibly for years, but it was because I was too busy focused on building the business. So serving clients, finding more clients, doing more trainings, more speaking gigs, planning content. So all of my creative spark was going on the things that I already had in place, and I was essentially burnt out. So I realized, okay, if I just stop doing that for now, I'll serve the clients that I've got. I don't have to spend the energy on finding any more or building the business. Basically, it was if I kept wanting to hit these targets that I set on myself business-wise, that required X amount of my time and X amount of my energy. There was no room to fit the book. I was at capacity, essentially. I was at 100% capacity in my business. And that that's great, but it's not scalable. So I couldn't go beyond that, right? So I was like, if I'm going to introduce a new project, a creative project that's going to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, turned out it took about 7, to get it out there, I'm going to have to hit pause on that. So basically it was, I created the space by taking the pressure off having to find new clients. And, you know, fortunately I built my business for years now. So I was able, I guess, just keep the word ticking over. Like, you know, there's X amount of costs for the business to run. As long as I've got this, I'll be all right. I'll admit I haven't actually, until fairly recently, I didn't take a new client on, which means the new income for the business kind of was paused. But I've been smart about it and just kind of said, well, if I'm not pushing and I don't take the pressure off, I can pay the bills. So I'm just going to pause for now. So it was about seeing the bigger picture, and that meant getting out of hustle mode, just month to month, day to day, week to week, serve, you know, client, sales. I had to stop. And when I stopped, creative energy come back, you know, and then you can renew that in maybe a bit more of an authentic, sustainable way in the future. And that's obviously my plan. I'm back in service mode now and say, right, I'm serving people again, not to write a book anymore. My creative energy can go back on service. So it's almost like that analogy. If you cannot pour from an empty cup. So I was trying to write a book from an empty cup and I couldn't do it. So I had to pause and think really creatively, and I slowed down a lot and I immersed myself in a lot of my hobbies, and I had a lot of freedom and spare time. And then all of a sudden I start getting ideas. Like, I get really good ideas when I slow down, when I'm still. I'm just thinking, when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving around in the car, you know, like when I'm fast and frantic, I don't seem to get any creative ideas because I'm all spent on serving and giving and achieving and problem solving. They're two different states of energy.
Yeah, totally. And the thing that's coming to mind here is a couple of weeks ago, I did a training for one of your client groups. And the one thing I kept coming back to was a quote by Debbie Ford around all the answers are within. You've just got to be quiet enough to hear them. We're in such an upregulated, fast, now world that we don't give ourselves the time and the peace and the quiet to actually sit there and, you know, like, have these things come to us. People, like, not, it's like constantly listening to music in the car and constantly doing this and like having that constant input of content at some level that you almost can't just be like, oh, and like an idea pops onto your plate, which is special. Like, I love that, and I can feel. I don't feel like I'm in that right now. I feel a bit like upregulated, so I'm almost like missing that piece for me personally to kind of get back into that sort of like quiet and creative and take that step back and sit in that world, because I love it. Like, that's me at my happy place. It's calm.
Me too.
Like, I didn't think that was me, but until I started living there, I'm like, oh, I love this.
I think it's seasonal, you know. I think you have to go through different seasons, and I've learned that there's times in life when you need to slow down and be creative and take stock of the world and think, right, well, what have I actually got to offer the world? And, you know, what's that old saying? If you don't have anything to offer the world, then don't. It's something like that, some sort of probably butcher. You know, there's always something that you can offer the world. And sometimes I think you just get burnt out, and what you're offering the world is you stagnate, you're at capacity. And if you want to offer something new, you know, you've got to step back, you know, but then there's also time to push on and hustle and grind and say, right, I'm going to maybe put my creative stuff to the side. I'm not going to create anymore. I'm going to serve, and I'm going to engineer the fruits of my creative labor in the past. And then all of a sudden the next time, whether it's the next year, the next summer, the next whatever, you'll go, right, I'm going to slow down again. So I've learned not to be one dimensional. I think we all need to be, have you ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu? Do you know what that is?
I've not, no.
Right, so it's essentially a military strategy book, right? But it's also basically a personal development book. It's all about the art of strategy and psychology. And he wrote it from being a ancient Chinese military general from about 2,000 years ago. So there's a lot of warfare element, but the strategies, like, you know, how to defeat your enemy, and the whole concept is basically being in a position of maneuverability is the number one law of power. So if you are one dimensional, you're not in a position of maneuverability. Yeah, so what Sun Tzu teaches us to be like multi-dimensional. It's like know what weapons to use at certain moments. And it's not about what you think is best. It's about what the environment reveals, you know, knowing when to tactically retreat, knowing when to go on the attack, you know, knowing when not to fight, knowing when to, not give up. What's the word? Is it like succeed? Like wave the white flag, in order to live to fight another day. And it's all about that. And you can apply that to modern day. And I looked at that and I was like, I'm not in a position of maneuverability. I feel boxed in. The moment I try and maneuver, everything comes tumbling down like a game of Jenga. I'm too stacked. So I was like, right, Art of War by Sun Tzu. I'm at war with myself, right? I'm at war with myself. I'm at war with my procrastination. I'm at war with the dark thoughts inside of me. I'm at war with the worst version of me, the version of me who's lazy, the version of me who judges people, the version of me who projects my fears and insecurities onto the world. That version of us always exists. And if you're boxed in, that version will come out the way you'll not grow. So I want to be in a position of maneuverability. I needed to slow down and be able to pivot without things crumbling down. In fact, the reason why I had to kind of pause being in service mode and building businesses, because I wouldn't have found the creative energy. I couldn't maneuver into that, So when we're fast and frantic, are we in a position of maneuverability? I love my martial arts as well, and it's the same as that. They talk about that in fighting and kickboxing and Muay Thai or UFC, MMA or whatever. If you're a great striker, but you cannot defend takedowns, and you're not in a position of power because you've got one trick and that's it. And if you get found out, you can't maneuver and pivot into the next strategy. So it's about knowing what strategy to play. Always be in a position of maneuverability. Looked at myself, I wasn't in a position of maneuverability. I was very fixed. I wasn't loose. I wasn't flexible, and I needed to be more of that. And I could only do that by slowing down.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's something that I can sit here and totally, relate to around having the ability to be strategic. Like when you were saying there about being a bit of a one trick pony, like I've got this one card up my sleeve and it's the same card every single time. It becomes predictable. It's boring. It doesn't really offer anything. It doesn't, like, you become like, oh, that's all you do. And I think for me, like I found so much peace in the fact of, actually, I do really like having that ability to be, you know, when to retreat, when is it time to almost just shut off from the world,
Yeah.
get yourself away, and when is the time to be going out and about? When's the time to be making noise, pushing a certain thing or a certain product? When is it that, like, if certain circumstances allow, push while you can.
Yeah.
But then also, like, when you've got no energy, like, and you're tired, and maybe there's a life situation playing out. Like, what? There is very little point and very little value in just forcing it, because you're not going to do it well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was basically I was fighting reality in 2023, 2024, writing down on a piece of paper, and I was setting my goals. Oh, I'm going to write this book, but I couldn't do it. I was kidding myself. The reality is, like I say, I had to stop and go, right. I'm too one dimensional. I'm stuck in one mode, and if I want to be in another mode to create this new thing, I'm gonna have to stop playing that, And like you say, most people, perfect segue into kind of the concept of what I'm writing about the book. Why people struggle with their eating habits is just because they're burnt out, Harvey. They're overwhelmed by life. They know what to eat, I know what I wanted to write about in the book, but I just couldn't implement it because I was just so burnt out and exhausted and one-dimensional, So the big concept of the book is about I talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about slowing down, taking stock of your life. There's a concept in the book which we've spoken about before. I call it the 7 voids. That's where you look at these 7 key areas in your life, which I get into the book, and we could talk about them later if you want, where you've got to look at where are my voids in my life. And maybe that's why I just can't stop eating. I can't stop this habit that I say that I do want to stop, or I can't start this new habit that I'm saying I want to gain that would benefit my life. It's like a lot of people feel like their life is just a series of having 15 round pegs, but 10 square holes, and they're like, well, what the hell's going on? I don't have enough space, and this doesn't even fit, and it's very forced, isn't it? It's very, very chaotic. And that's the book. That's what I talk about in the book. It's like, slow down, take stock of your life. If you are struggling with your eating habits, it's probably because in some way, shape, or form you don't like your life. So how about you work on your life and get it to a point where you start liking it more, and just see if the need to overeat subsides a little bit. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that when you do that, and you actually build a life that you don't want to escape from anymore, the need to overeat, or any coping mechanism for that matter, it's not really there anymore. Prevention is better than treatment. And, you know, obviously going into the book, Why You Overeating, How to Stop for Good, that was the title of the book. That's why I said it, because I know many people struggle with overeating and they've tried dozens of diets. They've spent potentially thousands of pounds on weight loss remedies. They've done all of the diets. They've done all of the workouts. They've done all the boot camps and the crazy things that they've done to try and lose weight or eat better, and it's never stuck. Is that because they don't know how to lose weight? Well, they do know how to lose weight, but they don't know how to maintain it. And maybe they can't maintain it because their life is utterly chaotic. So the book is about unfolding all of the behind the scenes things that's going on in your life that allows you to pinpoint exactly where there's chaos, exactly where there's a void in your life, and exactly why you are using food to fill it. Correct those voids, make some changes that actually build some solid ground. You want your life built on solid ground. You don't want it built on sand. And then if your life's on solid ground, let's try your next diet and let's see how well you do.
Yeah, totally. So let's get into kind of the contents of the book. I think a great place to start before we kind of get digging into the sort of topics that we've teased so far was why? Why this topic? Why now? I know obviously we said about at the time in the procrastination, but let's start painting a picture of why you brought this idea into the world.
So I'm going to start with a quote for you, and I've written it down here, and I'm looking at it.
Amazing.
It's a George Orwell quote. You heard of George Orwell?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. So there's 3 reasons why I wrote this book, Harvey. Number 1 was to tell the truth about why people struggle with their eating habits. Yeah, so I've got some statistics here for you I'm going to rattle off. Do you know that worldwide diets have a 90% failure rate?
I do, because you've said it about 1 million times to me. Yeah.
There's a study by a gentleman called Marshall S. Runge. I believe it's in 2017. You can have a little look online and find it. When I seen this statistic, I was like, holy crap, like I'm a PT. I help people with diets. I'm claiming that I know the secret of how to lose weight and eat better. And I'll tell you about your protein and your calories and how to train and how to go in the gym and lift weights and get results. But I then realized, okay, 10 people who I help, 9 of them will not maintain the results that they get that I teach them. So I was like, oh God, like, okay, right. Another stat for you. Do you know that 12.5% of teenagers in the UK and 22.36% of teenagers worldwide struggle with some form of disordered eating?
No, but I'll be honest, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And let's say that taking the UK stat, let's say 12.5%, which is what, if a quarter is 25, that's an eighth, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
That's an eighth of the teenagers in this country at some point in their teenage life, you know, from what, 11 to 19 or whatever, are going to have some form of eating disorder. Now, also consider how, due to stigma, how many teenagers don't actually speak about it. So that number is probably higher. We'll probably need to inflate that, don't we? Especially with teenage lads, teenage men. But like what I started developing when I was 15, 16, 17, that's where the making disordered eating started for me. You know, men aren't talking about that. I didn't even want to admit to myself as a teenager that I was struggling with binge, purge, what I can really describe now as anorexic and orthorexic style behaviors now, in hindsight, looking back as a 30-year-old man. Another stat for you. Did you know by 2035, so that's 10 years' time, the global weight loss industry, so that's diets, that's fitness stuff, that's surgeries, that's supplements, that's health and wellness things, anything that's associated with weight loss, right? The weight loss industry in 10 years' time is projected, if it follows the current trends, to be $896 billion worldwide. That's nearly $1 trillion, Harvey. Yeah. Currently in 2025, it's just over 500. So it's going to almost double in the next 10 years. So back to that quote about, in a time of universal deceit, to tell the truth is a revolutionary act. I'm essentially trying to create a revolution here, Harvey, because the reality is, if the weight loss industry, that means treating symptoms and not really keeping people sustainable results, so that 90% of why people fail diets remains, that's vital for their projected profits of 900 billion in 10 years. So it's actually not that the industry leaders who control the diet industry, the weight loss industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the surgeries, all the things that go along with people essentially being insecure of their body, hating it, feeling depressed and thinking that some sort of miracle quick fix is going to make them feel better. Is there any reason why they don't tell the truth about overeating? If that's how much money is to be made from people being a part of that statistic of why 90% of people gain all the way back, It's propping up an almost trillion by 2035, currently a $500 billion industry globally. That is why I wrote the book, Harvey, right? Because I don't think this industry is actually telling the truth. And it's not that the people inside of the industry are deliberately lying, because I was a personal trainer and didn't think I was deliberately lying either. But I just came to realize that these things are real. And the more people I work with, in my own experience with eating disorders, that people are struggling, man. People are struggling with their mental health. They're struggling with their life. They're struggling with a range of habits. And eating is only the tip of the iceberg. But if we just keep throwing money at treating the symptoms, those numbers are just going to keep getting worse. Where's it going to be by 2050? 2 trillion? You know what I mean? So you asked us why I wrote the book. There you go.
That is shocking. I don't think there's any other way to put that. Like, similar to yourself, again, we come from very similar backgrounds, PT, fitness industry, all of that usual jazz and rigmarole. But I think for me, like, again, that was one of the reasons that I really started to fall out of love with the fitness industry and the weight loss industry and whatever you want to call it, like fitness, health, wellness, going to the gym, squats, protein, deadlifts, all of that stuff, cheesy Instagram quotes, taking pictures with your top off, like all of that it's the tip of the iceberg. And
it's superficial, isn't it? And the people who are doing that, because I was that as well, I'm contradicting myself here, but I think we can look back and say, I wasn't quite getting it right there. I wasn't doing it maliciously or on purpose, shall we say, but I didn't get that right. So I've just changed the angle and I'm coming at this. I think the health and fitness and wellness industry is actually amazing, right?
there's a lot of potential to do a lot of good.
It could be better. That's all I'm saying, right? And I think the industry is going to change. And I think that the leading coaches and industry experts that we see develop and come through in the next 10 to 20 years are going to be people who are preaching both the healthy eating habits and the training, but complementing it with emotional regulation, nervous system health, overcoming past traumas, and basically a lot of like life work as well. Because I've been the guy who had the six pack and, in better shape than 90% of men. I was a bodybuilder. I did fitness photo shoots. Like, I was in great nick, like people would dream to have the body that I had back in the day when I was bang in the middle of my eating disorder, right? But I was bloody miserable, mate. I was miserable, right? So I think we need to start having better conversations around health in general. We need to link physical health and mental health together, because I essentially think they are the same thing. I think they're just different branches of the same tree. And I think when we isolate into these like industries like weight loss, it's like, okay, are we talking about any of the other stuff with why people need to lose weight in the first place? Like, why is someone like, you've seen them TV programs like My 600-Pound Life or whatever, where they're essentially bedridden and these people have become severely disabled due to overeating. Like, let's call it for what it is. Those people are eating themselves to death, and how much does that cost the industry and taxpayers' money and things like that? But also, let's have some empathy and compassion for that person who's clearly not getting the mental health support that they need to solve this problem. So when I see all of these problems and I look at how much money is to be made by these companies who are in control of the solutions, I'm like, this is just, it disgusts me. I don't know what else to say, because 90% of the people who need the most help are not getting the help. And like I say, I don't think this is done on purpose. I think most people who are trying to help, they're generally trying to help. But when we take a look at like you said, the surface, underneath the surface level is, I need to lose weight and eat better because I'm struggling with my happiness and my confidence. All right. But underneath that is a lifetime of traumas, relationship issues, a lack of fulfillment in their daily job and their daily routine. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So that's what the book's about. So I delve into all the strategies, the tips, the tricks, how to approach overeating from a bit more of a multi-dimensional angle, while not denying the need to be healthier and train and exercise. I talk a lot about that in the book. I just think we need to make the way we approach weight loss better. We don't need to tell people that they shouldn't want to lose weight. Like, of course they should want to lose weight. If I don't even need to convince people about the benefits of weight loss, right? As long as it's not took to the extreme, and as long as it's not done from an extreme place, which many people who have got severe psychological and mental health problems, losing weight's that's the tip of the iceberg for their problems. They've got way more problems that need resolving than that, and that's why they can't actually lose weight. The diets are temporary. They lose it, gain it back, lose it, gain it back. Why? Because they'll have a brief period of their life maybe not being as chaotic as it once was, and they'll be able to pick themselves up and work on themselves and stick to a diet and train a little bit. But in the way, again, they're back in the mental health hole, and the old coping mechanisms come back in. And I just see people trapped in the cycle. And The weight loss industry it's not actually in the weight loss industry's benefit to help them cure themselves and treat it from the root cause. Let's use the Slimming World analogy. It's like they don't want you to lose weight and never come back. They want to keep you in a perpetual cycle of needing to lose weight. Like, that's the industry, Harvey. The industry thrives on people being lost and confused, because if they weren't, they wouldn't make as much money.
Yeah, like, and I think for me, like, it's a similar. I think disgust is the right word, and like that just doesn't sit well with me. Like, when I was in PT and coaching and all of that, like, had a long-term retention, but it isn't about that. It's about, getting to a point where you don't need that. But I think it's good to have, like, if people want to stay because they enjoy
No,
that
I
support and
agree
that
with you. I
routine.
think community is great. And the one thing I love, I actually love this about Slimming World Weight Watchers, some of our slimming groups, is they create a very good sense of community. Like, I'd rather Slimming World and things like that existed than not existed, right? It's a great start. It's an entry point. But we also need to be having other conversations about, listen, like, your eating habits are a symptom of a deeper problem. So while you're here, let's try and work on the symptom, but let's also not kid with self, because, trying to treat emotional issues with a diet is like sticking a sticky plaster on, a shark bite.
Yeah, like, usually people at that point say sticking plaster on a broken leg, but I think a shark bite is probably a little bit more
Oh, it's like,
accurate.
yeah, you've been down the Great Barrier Reef, you've been snorkeling, you've been spearfishing, a great white
You
comes,
absolutely
bites
maul.
your leg off, and then you're like, all right, okay, I'll just stick this plaster on it. Like, that's literally what people are doing at Slimming World. They've been suffering with binge eating, compulsive eating, overeating, whatever you want to call it, for decades, right? They've got severe psychological issues that they're maybe not even aware of, because they're just so wrapped up in daily life and they're exhausted, they can't even have time to think about their problems. And they're trying to diet their way out of depression and anxiety and misery and PTSD. And like I say, it's a minefield when you get your head into it. And that's what kind of that frustration with also myself, and maybe at the time my inability to help people back in the day. I had a bit of a lockdown, the COVID 2020. That was the turning point for me, because I always had these feelings for maybe a year or so, but I didn't know what to do about it. So I just kept doing the personal training, helping people with the diets and this and that. And I saw the same clients kept coming back. And eventually I started feeling just like a fraud, to be honest. I was like, I'm not enjoying work anymore. And that was because I was like, I don't know if I can actually help these people. What they want, I don't think they can get, because we're going about this wrong. So when the lockdown happened, again, very similar to writing the book, Harvey, I had to have a pause on being in service mode, to where I was like, what the hell am I going to do now? When I had time to think, and maybe driven by a little bit of fear of like, how the fuck am I going to pay my bills next month, definitely came into play, because I wasn't working during the lockdown. That's when I come up with the idea, right, I'm going to be a mindset, emotional eating coach, help people lose weight in more sustainable ways. And I've been doing it ever since, so yeah, like I say, the book is pretty much, it's 10 years worth of experience, but it's all the stuff I've been teaching my clients with great success at overcoming disordered eating habits in the last 4 or 5 years since the lockdown. And, I thought, oh, the time's right. Let's get it out there.
So do you see a way out of this situation? Like I said, in the next 10 years, weight loss industry set to double. You've got everything popping up, constant developments in terms of, marketing and different strategies and different, products that people can use, can buy, constant evolution, highly competitive market, which will then drive innovation. Do you see a way out?
Yeah. I'm more optimistic than pessimistic. Like, writing that book filled me full of optimism, and the more conversations I have with people like yourself, all it takes is these conversations. Conversations like this, Harvey, change the world. They're contagious. Energy is contagious. And, the more people that read my book will get that. And disclaimer, so many of the things I talk about in this book are also things I've learned of loads of different authors out there. I see myself nothing more than a very creative postman, okay? So I wrote this book, obviously, but I didn't make all of this information up. I collected it and I'm just delivering it to people. So I've packaged it up and repurposed it. I see myself as a postman, a deliverer of what I see as the truth, okay? And some people won't like the truth, but some people will. And the people that will like the truth, that energy that they've now gained, the definition of inspired, Harvey, means in spirit. I don't know if you knew that. So that energy that you feel when you're inspired feels amazing, right? It's almost like some force has taken over and you're like, wow, I feel good. I feel driven now. I've got a path. I feel optimistic. It's almost like you're being possessed by a positive spirit, you know? Also, like when you feel very depressed and disconnected, it's almost like you're possessed by a dark entity. And we'll talk about the analogy of the demon on the shoulder telling you nasty things. It's like, all right then. So if we want to go biblical about it and have a bit of a religious connotation, you know, which I don't necessarily agree with all the religious stuff, but I actually like the psychology behind a lot of the teachings. It's very interesting. The word inspired means in spirit. So if I deliver this truth, you know, in the post, digitally or through people's letterbox, not me, you know, Amazon or whatever, then I believe they're getting their hands on the truth, which I've also collected from loads of other truth tellers and truth seekers that inspired me. I'm just passing it on, mate. I'm just passing it on. So if more people pass it on, the world can be a better place, you know. So we can't control the industry. We can't control the people who have the money, who have the biggest marketing budgets, who thrive off people's misery and chaos. And there's many other industries that thrive off that. Like we could talk all day about that, you know, but I don't want to get my tinfoil hat on. You know, just follow the money, right? That's all I'm saying. It's going to require people listening to this podcast, myself, yourself, the people I speak to, the people you speak to, and the positive spreading of the message throughout the entire world will have some sort of ripple effect that it will have a positive effect, right? Because I can't control the industry. I can only focus on myself. If we want to change the world, we'll just change myself. If we want to change the energy and the frequency that we emit into this world to leave a lasting effect. A ripple effect's a big thing. Laws of cause and effect, law of reciprocity, law of attraction. These are all universal laws that thrive on that statement that I've just made about if you want the world to be a better place, well, look within. So I looked within and went, right, well, I feel very strongly about this. I feel like I've stumbled across this truth. This truth has inspired me. I'm inspired by other people. I'm inspired. I want other people to feel how I felt when I came across this information from this source over here. So like I said, I've just packaged it up. I'm hoping to inspire people to put that spirit of optimism and hope, I guess, to people who need it. So as long as people like myself, yourself, the people who I've learned from exist, as long as those people who are doing that are having conversations with each other and spreading the message, there's no reason why the world can't be a better place. But I also believe in the law of polarity. That's another universal law, Harvey. We can't have a negative without a positive. We can't have good without evil. We can't have light without dark. We can't have water without dry land. We can't have prey without predator, right? Can't have rain without sunlight. There's polar opposites, right? So I think parts of the industry will get worse and more chaotic, but parts of it, if we do the things that I've spoken about, it will counterbalance it, you know? And we've got to have hope that good will defeat evil, you know, which I do.
Amazing. Going into the actual content of the book, and by no pressure to obviously give away the secrets and some of the stuff that you want to keep, that you'll get the value from sitting there or reading and listening to the book. What do you feel? What's something from the book that you feel can have a really good impact today? Someone could pause this podcast right now and then go off on action.
Well, it's not even about giving the secret away, because I don't believe this is a secret. I believe this is it's the truth, okay? So the main framework from the book, I talked about it before, the 7 voids, you know, like would you be open to having a conversation around the 7 voids, Harvey?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. So I've been teaching this in my program for years now. And this framework, I talk about getting the truth from other sources and kind of repackaging it and repurposing it for the people who I think I need to help. I got this information from reading Johann Hari's book, Lost Connections, in 2020. His book, Lost Connections, is about the root causes to depression and anxiety. He was the main inspiration for my book, because I was like, right, he's talking about the root causes of depression and anxiety. I want to delve deeper into the root causes of emotional eating and disordered eating. So using his framework, I went, how do I see that apply? And I fortunately had made test subjects to study, right? They were my clients. They were the clients that I've worked with previously. I've worked with 2,000, according to my Stripe account, 2,000 customers. So about 2,000 clients from when I first started in online coaching to what I'm doing now. Over 2,000 now, something like 2.5 or something. So that's 2,000 people I've had in-depth conversations with, intimate relationships with, understanding them, talking. I must have put 10,000 hours in of phone calls over the last 5-6 years, Harvey. And The amount of conversations I've had is unbelievable. And what I've learned has also been unbelievable. And the same things that I saw people like Johan Hari talking about and other authors who I drew inspiration from, Nicole LePera from, she's called the Holistic Psychologist on social media. She's got a book out called How to Be the Love That You Seek. That talks a lot about people pleasing and past abuse and how this impacts our behaviors, our health habits. And when I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my God, this translates perfectly to my clients who tell me all the time about what they are struggling with, So I just collected all this information that I thought, this is what really is going to help people, okay? So I've tweaked some of these frameworks and kind of put my spin on it and adapted it, right, to what I see in front of me with the clients who I work with and why they specifically struggle with their eating. So the 7 voids that I believe drive all self-sabotaging behaviors or self-soothing behaviors or addictive behaviors, right? Number 1, it's disconnection from a daily life. So this might be hating your job, not liking the structure of your day, not liking the roles and responsibilities that you have, feeling burdened by your responsibilities, bored by your daily rituals, feeling, like I say, bored, monotonous, feeling chaotic. And when someone is just burned out with their day-to-day life, they're just in service mode, giving mode, they're people please, and they're exhausted, they're burnt out. They hate their job, let's say your job's 40, 50 hours a week and you despise it. You hate every minute of it. Well, if you're supposed to be sleeping for another 7, 8 hours a day and then going to work for 7, 8 hours a day, it doesn't leave a lot of time left over to enjoy your life. So I think so many people are just stuck in that burnout, right? So that's void number 1. It's like, what is your life like? What's your job like? What's the roles, responsibilities that you got? Do you feel burdened by your life? And what strategies do you need to make life less chaotic? Is that better delegation strategies? Is that to create an exit plan from your job? Is that to plan in more time for yourself? Is that to have better organization, self-care and all that sort of stuff? How can we get your life better so you don't feel the need to escape from it, okay? Number 2, it's about being disconnected from what I call joy and pleasure, right? So this could be a lack of hobbies, a lack of creative outlets, a lack of self-care, a lack of anything that brings enjoyment and a sense of play, okay? Let's be honest, people overeat because it tastes good, it feels good, it derives some form of pleasure. And when we are unsatisfied and unfulfilled with our life, the human brain will look for the path of least resistance and look for easy, quick forms of pleasure in the form of a massive dopamine release. This is where all the vices come in. This is why people drink, why they take drugs, why they have sex, why they gamble, why they spend money that they don't have and get into debt. It's also why they overeat. So if and I always say this, Harvey, if food is the most pleasurable thing you have in your life, you have a problem. That means there's something missing. You don't actually know how to make yourself feel better. You don't know where to find pleasure. So when you're void of it, you look for it in quick, easy places that hold you back. So a big part of healing your relationship with food is actually finding new ways to get pleasure, to experience pleasure in the form of healthy outlets. Like I'll just say now, the clients I've worked with are thousands of people, mainly women. The clients who had creative outlets, hobbies in their life, things to look forward to, got better results with their eating than people who didn't. If your life looks like just go to work, come home, scroll on your phone, watch TV, eat, wait for the weekend, order takeaways, and go back to work, and that's it. If the most exciting part of your day is, what am I going to order for a takeaway tonight? I actually feel very sad for you. I feel very sad. That's a sad life. And I'm not trying to be condescending here. I've been there, mate. I have been there when the most exciting part of my day was what I could force in my mouth at the end of the day just to numb myself into oblivion so I could get to sleep and not have a panic attack. I've been that guy. And I know what it's like for people who have no sense of joy and pleasure in their life. They're so burnt out with their life and maybe past traumas, which I'll get onto, that they don't even know how to experience pleasure. They don't even know what that is. They don't even know where to get started, mate. They don't even know where to get started. So that's void number 2. You're void of a sense of pleasure and excitement in your life, and you need to find out what that is for you. Number 3, disconnections from relationships. I drew inspiration from Tony Robbins with this one, right? He has a quote where he says, I'm paraphrasing it, but it's something along the lines of, your mental health will be dictated by the quality of your relationships, So that's your spouse, who you marry, who you're in a relationship with, the relationship that you've got with your children, the relationship that you've got with your own parents, and the relationship that you have to a sense of community or tribe. And how healthy those relationships are, the dynamics of those relationships, they will massively impact your mental health. Many people listening right now will be like, oh my God, that's totally true. I'm going through a divorce right now. I'm going through a breakup, or I'm not getting on in my marriage, me and my partner aren't having sex, or I've got a terrible relationship with my parents, there's loads of history of fighting and, past traumas that never got resolved and unresolved conflict. I'm estranged. I'm an estranged son. I'm an estranged daughter, or I've got estranged siblings. We never get on. We never did. There's a past there. There's a history there, or On another level, people who I work with, like clients, might say, Sam, I'm very lonely. I'm not in a relationship, but I'd long to be. You know, I never see my friends. They're always busy. I'm always busy. I live alone. I don't really like where I live. I don't really know anyone. A lot of people got very isolated and disconnected in the lockdowns, Harvey, and they never really recovered from it. The world fundamentally changed, and the way that we interact with each other changed forever, and it ain't coming back, mate. It ain't coming back. We go to restaurants now, and there's, or shops, there's cashless tills, and there's QR codes at the table, and every part of human interaction is being automated and systemized, right? And this is happening in our own personal lives, and many people feel completely disconnected. Their only forms of connection is scroll on social media and, comment on their friend's picture, or having an Instagram chat, or sending each other memes. That's not connection, mate. That's not connection. And many people are using food to replace the lover that they don't have. Many people are using food to replace the sense of community that they don't feel a part of. Many people are using food to replace the sense of love, acceptance, and approval that they don't get from their parents or never got due to family traumas. That's void number 3. It's looking at your relationships and saying, am I using food to compensate for a lack of connection to the people in my life? I mentioned traumas before. That's void number 4. Limiting beliefs due to past traumas. This is essentially the experiences that you had, how they've impacted you, how they've left your personality or your psychological state. As a result of those experiences, many people can have very fearful or limiting beliefs which block their ability to see new opportunities or to achieve things in their life. Many of my clients I work with, they might have a limiting belief like, oh, I've always been overweight, I was, bullied in school, and I've always been self-conscious, and I've been criticized for my appearance, and partners criticized how I looked, and my parents always got on my back and criticized my body, and I feel like the world's judging me. Okay, those people, through their painful experiences, don't actually believe that they are worthy of losing weight or being healthier. They feel trapped, they feel stuck, and that belief reinforces the whole aspect of what's the point? Why shall I try? I'll never be able to change. And, that's just one example of a limiting belief due to past experiences that can really block someone's ability to actually see a path forward for themselves and stay stuck in this like self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't believe you are worthy, you'll not act as someone who is worthy. If you don't believe you'll ever change, you'll not change. If you don't believe you're good enough, then why would you even try? So a big part of my job is helping people unravel their traumas, understand them, connect the dots between their past experiences to what belief systems they are holding in this moment, and then looking to challenge those belief systems with new strategies, with new ways to cope with new ways to challenge those fears, Number 5 is basically the comparison to other people, the constant comparisons to other people, whether this is about status, about looks, about personality, about opportunities, about careers, about money, about whatever. A lot of people are addicted to their phones, Harvey. They're swiping and scrolling all day, are constantly comparing their life to other people, and that makes them feel very low down on the pecking order.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, we're still we are animals, right? But we're part of the primate family, okay? So we're nothing more than advanced monkeys, hairless monkeys, Harvey, with iPhones and microwave and social media, right? We think we're clever, we are, but we're really still animals, right? So primates have a pecking order. They know who the alpha male is, they know who the alpha female is, they know who the lieutenants are and the people underneath them, or whatever structure monkeys have within their little social groups. But we know that, right? We're the same, okay? So that might be monetary, it might be looks-wise, it might be where you live, it might be what your job title is, it might be, are they more confident? So we're all living by this unconscious pecking order, constantly scanning our environment to see where we fit. That's what humans do, and we will always do that. And when we're not aware of that, it can often manifest as very negative self-limiting beliefs about, oh, I'm not good enough because of X, Y, Z. There was a time, and I talk about this in the book, Harvey, that I thought I was only worthy of love, acceptance, approval if I had a six-pack and had this amazing body that would give me love and attention, when in reality it was a trauma of rejection and a fear of never being good enough that drove my insecurity for me to participate in unhealthy habits that didn't actually help me solve the problem, because the problem was unresolved trauma and conflicts with myself, not actually my body. So it's all about the comparisons and how do they fuel shame, how do they fuel guilt, feelings of self-loathing, inadequacy. So that's the comparison. So it's looking at the voids that you've created in your own little world inside of your mind through the pecking order that you've put yourself in. And that pecking order is completely made up, by the way. We make it up due to the standards and the metrics that we try and hold ourselves accountable to. And sometimes those beliefs are utterly toxic and they are having toxic consequences on us. That's driving us to be depressed, to re-experience trauma as a result of our behaviors and our choices. Number 6 is, again, talk about being an animal. Well, we are. And if we're not taking our health and our wellness and our environment, our living space, our nutrition, our connection to nature, we're going to get physical and psychological consequences. So void number 6 is about how connected are you to nature and the natural order of things. So what's your sleep like? What's your nutrition like? What's your exercise like? What's your community like? What's your tribe like? All of the health and fitness habits associated with that. Are you treating yourself well? Are you respecting yourself like Mother Nature intended you to do so? Many people are living this very processed life, not just in the form of processed foods, processed living, processed light, too many screens, not going outside, artificial relationships, like I mentioned before, not getting out in the fresh air and speaking to your best friend and having a good old belly laugh and touching, hugging, and, we're not doing that. So are we living like animals are supposed to live, physically, right? And the last void, it's about hope. And if we feel disconnected from hope, what's the point? As the old saying goes, if we are void of hope, we cannot cope. And that means that we'll not be able to deal with our emotions. We'll not be able to deal with uncertainty, with fear, with our insecurities. It will create anxiety. It will create depression. And the more and more I work with people inside of my programs who I help on an emotional, spiritual, and physical level with their eating habits and everything associated with that, the more people I hear saying, Sam, I just don't know who I am. Sam, I'm just not excited about my life anymore. I feel trapped. I feel purposeless. I feel like I've got no meaning. I'm suffering in a life that I don't want. I think everyone's experienced that void at some point in their life. And I believe that's what the doorway is. That's the metaphysical doorway for depression in our mind, in our psyche. It's when we feel completely disconnected from hope and we just think, what am I doing? What's the point? I'm in the wrong life. I'm in the wrong job. I'm in the wrong relationship. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I feel lost. And when we don't listen to that pain, it'll manifest as anxiety, depression, psychological issues, health issues. So void number 7 is about, like I said, building a life that you don't want to escape from anymore and finding hope.
I think that is incredibly comprehensive. And as you were going that through each void one by one, I was sitting there and being like, I can see how that's applied to me at some point in my life. What I think is if I can sit there and do that, then it's highly likely that we've all experienced a level of each of those voids at any one time. Like more extreme than others. There's going to be reasons that someone's going to have had it a lot worse at one point than another, which is the way it is. But I think it's, as we're going through there, like I think while people are listening, they're going to be like, "Oh, that was me at this point. And that was this at this point." Ultimately, awareness is the first step, right? It's
Yeah.
having that level of understanding on a level rather than being completely oblivious. Like, why
Those
is
people's
this?
minds, that blew my mind the first time I understood it, And then when I've rejigged it and kind of applied it and tweaked it, changed it. It's my own framework, but it's inspired by others. I get the same feedback every time, Harvey, when people say that. They're like, oh my God, like it's a moment of a feeling of a bit of terror and a bit of uncertainty. Like, my God, I can't run away from these voids anymore. You're totally right. That's me. And that could be quite frightening. That can evoke quite a lot of fearful emotions like terror, anxiety, but it can also be very liberating because now you're forced to deal with the truth, which comes right back to why I said I wanted to write the book, because that's the truth. Okay.
Since you are Mr. Emotional Eating, let's start to dig a little bit deeper about the act of emotional eating. What does it really mean to do it? And are people maybe eating or acting in a particular way that when they didn't necessarily realize?
Yeah, I mean, let's get back to that statistic we talked about where 90% of people who've lost weight on diets gain it back within 12 months or less, right? People didn't gain it back because they wanted to. They did it because life got on the way. That created a sense of anxiety, depression, fear, stress, boredom, overwhelm, whatever the feeling was. And then they used food to comfort eat, right? So everyone knows the term comfort eating, right? I think everybody comfort eats to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
when comfort eating crosses the boundary of like, oh, I've just ate a little bit of food because I really wanted that chocolate bar, to now I'm doing comfort eating multiple times a day or multiple times a week, that it's taken me out of a calorie deficit and now I'm gaining weight. Well, that's emotional eating. It's like everyone comfort eats, sometimes if I feel a bit crap or whatever, I think, oh, I fancy this. But I also kind of know that within me, like if that's like That's the start of emotional eating. It's like a bit of comfort eating. There's nothing necessarily wrong with comfort eating, but we'll have to understand we are using food in that moment for the feeling it gives us. It's a distraction from how we don't want to feel. So when people think, oh, I just can't stop eating chocolate, I'm addicted to chocolate. You're not addicted to chocolate. You're actually addicted to escaping a feeling that you don't want, and chocolate is just the way that you get there. So food's the vehicle, but it's the feeling that you don't want to feel that's driving it. So emotional eating is essentially a lack of emotional regulation skills. That when these emotions are present in the body, which are being evoked by some sort of stress in the environment. Remember, we're just animals reacting to our environment. And when our environments become very stressful, we get emotions, okay? And then how we attach to those emotions give us our feelings. And it's those feelings that drive us to go, I don't like this feeling, I need to eat. Like for me, Harvey, when I was right bang in the middle of my disordered eating, I'd go on these crazy diets and I'd stick to it for a certain amount of time. Then I'd binge compulsively and overeat and then gain all the weight back. Or I might be doing well on a diet and then I'll start feeling anxious, and I used to have panic attacks and things like that. And I get into it a lot in the book. You know, I'll not reveal that bit because I think that story is quite powerful, and I leave for people
Yeah,
to
no,
listen to the book about how I, had suicidal thoughts and how that accumulated one day and got to a point when I just didn't know if I could continue on, and this all unfolded all in the book. And really what it was for me, Harvey, is I was having these panic attacks. I wasn't sleeping. I was really depressed in my life. My relationship with my parents was not good. My relationship with my partner was not good. I wasn't treating her very nice, and I wasn't taking responsibility for that. I was unemployed. I was lacking purpose. I just felt really stuck and lost in my personal life, and it was manifesting as like anxiety and mental health issues, and I was very depressed, and I didn't know what to do. And to me, when I felt really sad or really anxious, or like I said, I'm in the middle of a panic attack, I'd go downstairs and I'd binge eat. I'd make a full slice, a full loaf of toast and cook the entire, sorry, not cook, toast like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sometimes more slices of bread. I'd have 5 bagels with jam and peanut butter all over, and I'd stand downstairs, not wanting to wake anyone up, and shove them in my mouth and then go back to sleep, and then carb coma, So for me, it was about escaping anxiety, escaping shame, escaping depression. For other people, they might be eating or comfort eating because they feel lonely, because they feel disconnected. Like I said before, food can take the place of a lover that you don't have. It can take the place of a safe, stable relationship with a parent that you never got. It can be a source of comfort for many things. So I'd say generally people overeat because they don't know how to deal with stress. They do it to distract themselves from feelings of anxiety on a subtle level, maybe not as deep. They do it because they're bored. How easy is it to just go and grab some food because you're bored and you just want something to do in that moment? Overeating is driven by some sort of emotions and feelings, but we're not having conversations around that. We're just saying, oh, I'm eating too much. How do I stop eating so many chocolate bars? But we're not asking ourselves, what's causing me to eat so many chocolate bars? What's the behavior? What's behind the behavior? What belief systems, feelings, emotions, thoughts are driving me to want to escape how I feel by putting food in my mouth? So we've got to look at that act, and that's what emotional eating is. And a lot of people who struggle with their weight and their eating habits, that's exactly what they'll do, but they might not have ever linked that in the mind as that's exactly what they do. They've always just thought they lacked willpower or struggled with motivation or, whatever. It's like, yeah, you need to learn how to deal with emotions that might really be hard. For me, it was feelings of rejection, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of, worthlessness, depression, anxiety, a lot of shame. I didn't know what to do with them feelings, Harvey. And I also used other coping mechanisms in my past as well. Drugs, alcohol, even sex, even spending money that I didn't have on credit cards. I've always been a
I'm a
guy
very deep.
who's tried to escape, escape my emotions. Emotion eating is an act of escapism. And when I go back to those 7 voids I talked about before, if people listen to that and they're listening right now and they're like, God, like, you've just described how I felt about my life. I just couldn't articulate the reasons why. And you've also just described exactly what I do when I feel sad, when I feel bored. And that's why I wasn't able to stick to my diet. That's why I couldn't maintain my weight loss. That's why I struggle. Like, I want people to have, if they take one thing from this podcast, Harvey, and even from my book, right? Just the take home message is that you're not broken. You're not lacking willpower. There's nothing wrong with you. You're someone who's going through something right now and you don't know any other way to deal with those emotions like I didn't, other than use food for comfort. But now that you've had the realization that you're using food for comfort because it's some sort of coping mechanism, how can we possibly learn some strategies to deal with those emotions? And if we can, because I know we can, I talk about it in the book, I've done it, and the thousands of clients I've worked with have done it, then people listening right now can too.
Amazing. And what would be that first step? So if someone messages you off the back of this, what would the like? Right, I'm realizing that something's not quite. There's a level of disconnection. There's a level of an emotional need isn't being met, for example, what's the first thing that you would say to do?
Well, that 7 voids that I rattled off before, get out a pen and paper, which ones come up for you. Some of them won't be applicable. Like someone might be like, Sam, I get so much joy from my job. I absolutely love it. It's just that when I come home from work, I'm single, I'm lonely, I live on my own, I don't really have any friends, I'm bored. It's because I'm lacking fulfilling hobbies. So my job's amazing. I actually like that part of my life. It's this part of my life. Or someone might have a load of hobbies, but the reason they've got so many hobbies is because they're not getting on with their wife or their husband back home. So they're avoiding their relationship. They're avoiding intimacy. They're avoiding dealing with conflicts. They're avoiding rejection. They're avoiding relationship trauma, because they're running away by, having loads of hobbies and being busy and hiding in their work, So I don't know. So my advice would be to listen to those voids that I talked about and just write down whatever you feel comes up for you and do a bit of analysis, right? And label them, right? What's the most painful to the least painful? And then I would cross-reference it again from painful to least painful to what's actually the easiest to get started with. And then I would pick the easiest one. So many things that I say to people, generally speaking here, I can't individually give someone a plan right now, mate, so that's why I have a program. That's why I work with people one-on-one. But what I can do is, generally speaking, say, pick the easiest thing. For many people, Harvey, the easiest thing is just find a new way to get some pleasure. Like, have you got a hobby? No. Right. Find one. Have you got anything to do if on a weekend, when I'm not distracted by work, I get really bored and I overeat all weekend, and whatever diet I follow Monday to Friday has gone out the window because of Saturday and Sunday is eating. I'm like, right, you need a better weekend routine. What would you possibly do on a weekend? So you end the week on Sunday night going, wow, like I've enjoyed my food, but I haven't binged. Why? Well, I was so fulfilled. Last week, the most exciting thing was my takeaway. This week, it was this. Just get some more enjoyment out of life. Immerse yourself in hobbies. Really take your self-care seriously. Have creative outlets, do things that bring you joy, slow down a little bit, play more. That would probably be the easiest thing to get started with, because that's on the table right now, Harvey. A lot of people say, Sam, I'm bored and I struggle with comfort even when I'm bored. I'm like, right, there's an easy solution. What is that? Don't be bored. You're choosing to be bored by not taking action when you're bored. It's a choice. Things make better choices and you'll not be as bored. That's on the table for everyone. Now, deeper, some sort of like past unresolved trauma from childhood, that's going to take some work. That's going to take some time. How about we build up to that by maybe working on some of the easier voids? And secondarily, I'll say buy my book. That's the easiest way to get the results. Get my book, right?
Yeah,
It's all in there.
amazing. And I think that it's very easy, especially I know when I've been presented with these situations and that sort of wound is very, very fresh and very raw. It's very easy, and I certainly know it from my point of view. Like the head starts to whir and it starts to spin. And that's probably one of the worst situations that you can get yourself in. But like I said, it's looking at, right, let's keep this simple. Let's follow the framework.
That's why I said pick one, Harvey. If
Yeah.
someone's listening right now, Sam, every single one of them is applicable, which coincidentally, when I was struggling with my eating disorder and really struggling with binge eating and all of the associated mental health issues, every one of those voids was present. So not only will that framework tell you why you're struggling with your eating, it'll tell you about why you're struggling with any emotion that you've ever experienced, because that will reveal everything. But don't overwhelm yourself. If you've got 7 voids, yeah, looking at that and going, oh my God, where the hell am I going to start? I agree with you. I did feel overwhelmed. So you start small. Pick one. Pick just one. One action. That's it.
And I think that is an incredible place to end. I know that you and I can always talk for hours and at great pace and great speed, but I think that's a very nice gift. To go back to your postman analogy, I think we covered a lot of ground and there's a lot of stuff to take away and start to mull over and start to action. I know, obviously, like I said, you're very much in the process of the book. But what's next for you?
What's next for me? I guess getting back in my community and making my client community even better. We've got various different levels. How I help people. Some are my one-to-one clients. Some just like to stay in my community, so they do online events with me. They have WhatsApp support. They join my live events that we do 3 or 4 times a year in person. And they do all of my courses, and we'll have a nice online community. So we have the online community as well as my private one-to-one clients who I do some of the deeper work with and coach them personally. That's what I'm doing. That's what actually wrote the book. There's 3 concepts in this book, really, 3 frames in this book. Number 1 is my backstory, what I struggled with, how I overcame it, my personal experience and golden nuggets from what I learned by overcoming that. Then there's the part of the book which my clients wrote. They didn't physically write it, but they writ it through what I observed them get over the years. So they give me the inspiration for what to write, because this is what I learned. When you practice these theories and frameworks, this is what happens. And inside the book, I've got multiple client case studies where my clients, or I write a story about my clients, where they started off, what they struggled with, how they corrected those voids, outcomes that they got, and where their life is now. There's multiple experience of that in the book, and I take people through so they can, again, become inspired, gain spirit from the stories in the book. So my clients' own results that they got, I never got. I just supported them and gave them a framework to follow and held them accountable. That's what coaching is. I didn't do any of this work for them. They had to do that. So they wrote the next half of the book, right? For me, I just put it into words, but they give me the inspiration by their results. So it's what I observed in front of me. So I've got my experience, I've got the experience of my clients, and then all of the information I found out there through the various authors that I referenced, the studies that I referenced, the frameworks in there where I drew inspiration from. I drew inspiration from Tony Robbins for this book. I drew inspiration from Nicole Pera. I drew inspiration from Johan Hari, Gabor Mate, Debbie Ford, her work on overcoming trauma, talk about that. Byron Katie, Stop Fighting Reality. Talk about strategies. I mentioned Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I don't know if I reference him directly. I don't. But some of his strategies I have adopted literally for overcoming mental health issues. So I've just gained so much inspiration. So I'm inspired by other people. I'm inspired by my clients, and I'm inspired by my own journey of overcoming this. And I want to tell people about it. So that's, I'm not sure what your question was. I forgot now, but that is the book. That's what people need to know about it.
And what I'll do is I'll make sure to put a link to where to buy the book in the show notes of the show. So thank you very much, mate. Appreciate you.
Appreciate that as well. Thank you for everyone who's been here and listened in the future. So yeah, thank you very much.